Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everyone's having a swell day. I just thought I'd make a little bit of a update onto what's going on with SCRN since the last video I put out. Just because the share price has gone down quite a bit, and it's just hovering around the 3 cent mark. But I do see a little bit of a few worries by investors, and there's some concerns out there, and I hope to address those in the video. One thing I'd like to point out is I haven't sold anything. I've been buying these just gift of a price. So I want to start off by introducing our interim CEO, Mr. Andrew. He's a hard man to find pictures of, but there's just a few out there. And one thing I'd really love to come out in maybe a few weeks or hopefully in a few days is get an interview with him or just meet the man and see sort of what his vision is, the sort of personality he has when it comes to business and running companies. Now, the main purpose of this little update is to kind of put to rest some of the concerns that the investors have in this company, and one of the major ones is the business model might be threatened. So the fundamentals of Screen Pro could be in a worry, or people are just worried, what's going to happen after COVID's over. Another concern being that it's just a front for DM, and that's just ridiculous. They're very close companies, but I don't think that is, and I'll just go a little bit deeper into that. And the third point, the lack of transparency into future plans. So it kind of links up with the business model being threatened, but right now, for all we know, COVID's here for a long time, but they still need another line of business, another vertical to grow on, and the company needs to have a future. And the last one being, ultimately, we haven't heard anything from management. We haven't been getting updates. I don't expect a new contract to be signed every single day, but the blank periods in between, just, hey guys, we're still working here, or just an address to investors like, don't worry, we're still a good company. Just something to ease their mind, or just have some communication. Because from what I've been hearing, Jamie Highland over at Screen Pros has been communicating. I think he's the one in charge of all the investor relations. And obviously Mr. Ru is very busy with all his other ventures, but we just need some communication from the management. So I think I'd get started with the first point of concern for most people is the business model might be threatened. And because everything's opening back up, people have got the vaccine, and it seems like COVID's kind of done for right now. But this opinion piece kind of sums it up pretty well. But Canada could avoid the worst of the fourth wave, but we're not out of the woods yet. Diving a little bit deeper into it as what it means and the evidence behind it is, this is a recent article I just pulled off. It kind of puts into perspective all the recent developments in regards to the Delta variant and the shutdown that's coming up, and we can see. But the evidence is mounting that the Delta variant, first identified in India, is capable of infecting fully vaccinated people at a greater rate than previous versions, and concerns have been raised that they may even spread the virus. Look around, there's plenty of cases of people with the vaccine catching the virus, spreading it to other people that are fully vaccinated as well. Notable example being someone as affluent as David Sachs. He got the virus from a person that was fully vaxxed. He was fully vaxxed, but he was still out and sick. Los Angeles County, the most populous in the United States, is again requiring masks even among the vaccinated in indoor places. And I think just yesterday the CDC kind of put this all over the US, and pretty much everyone's going to be having to have a mask on indoors, and it doesn't matter if you have a vaccine or not. So it kind of feels like we're taking one step forward with 2 steps back. But it's a very similar tune to what was happening last fall, and we saw this as we start to transition over from the summertime into the colder months. And the virus picks up, and I guess the Delta variant's kind of just speeding that up. In terms of the details and the numbers, so the UK on Friday, the total of their 3,692 people, 58.3% were unvaccinated, which is kind of obvious. If you're not vaccinated, you are going to get the hospital. But this fact that is the most surprising to me is 22.8% were fully vaccinated. So the promise of the vaccine was, hey, you get this, you're not going to get seriously ill, you're definitely not going to go to the hospital. But it seems like at 22.8%, it's not just a few cases here and there. It's pretty significant in terms of how many people are still getting sick and having to go to the hospital. Singapore, where Delta variant's the most common, the government officials also said that 75% of their coronavirus cases occurred amongst vaccinated people. So I don't think fully vaccinated, but even one shot's supposed to give you some sort of protection, right? Although none were severely ill. And it's very vague sort of wording, because what does severely ill mean, right? Severely ill can mean they're on the ventilator, but it still could mean they're really sick and having difficulty breathing, or in a hospital bed for a week and a half. So I'm not sure the exact length, and there's obviously cases of severity and mild severity, and there's a big variance there. Now, one of the main things I always hear when I tell people invest in SCRN, it's a solid company, is but the vaccine. And It's from the same article. I just want to dig into Israel, which was one of the first ones, one of the first countries to implement a strong vaccination policy. And these guys were out there getting the vaccine into their people and their citizens. And I think they were one of the first ones to reach a large percentage of their population vaccinated. So they're saying the Pfizer and BioNTech, from my understanding, which is sort of the preferred vaccine, and that's the one I sort of saw was being given around in Alberta, where I live in. It's only 41% effective at halting symptomatic infections. So the original promise of the Pfizer one was like 90-something%, and as we can see, 41 is a long ways away from what was promised. And this is just one mutation of the virus, and the thing is, it came from India, right? It's 1 billion people, most of them unvaccinated. The virus is going to stay there and mutate, and there's a new one coming from Peru. So my concern is, it's going to keep evolving into more and more and more worse, and eventually we're going to reach a point where it's just a deadly thing, almost close to Ebola if we don't get everyone vaccinated. So it doesn't matter if, let's say, everyone in Alberta is vaccinated, or everyone in North America is vaccinated, or the developed world, the undeveloped world, where there's massive numbers of people living there unvaccinated, that this virus is going to mutate and turn into something that the vaccines we have can't even fight. So obviously there's a lot of different numbers coming from different places, but the idea is the vaccine is not effective anymore. And this is just 41% right now, but I'll tell you, we saw this when COVID originally came out. First of all, it was not a big worry. Then it started to become, maybe it's a serious thing. Then, maybe it's something else, and kind of just developed. And I think that's what happened with the vaccine, because initially they said, Delta variant, it's not going to do anything. You have the vaccine, you're perfectly fine. But, we can see the tune sort of changing amongst the health advisors, and at this point, it's all a very familiar matter, and we all know where this is headed. So another concern is that SCRN might just be another front for DM. So to address this one, we need to dive into the weeds a little bit. So I just pulled this little section from the latest annual financials that were released by SCRN on May 31st, if I'm not mistaken. So this kind of just delves a little bit deeper into their gross revenue, where it came from, and the sales with related party transactions. So DM, for those that are unfamiliar, is almost sort of a parent company for SCRN. So Mr. Rue founded DM. He was the original founder. The company was incorporated under his name and such, but now he just sits on the board. And he owned a considerable amount of shares, but last I checked, he sold all of his DM, and the only two companies he's involved with publicly are GBLC and SCRN. Those are his two biggest holdings. He owns 0 DM stock right now, and once we dig into it and see what their sort of relationship is, so equipment and inventory purchased from a related party, so being DM, so they spent $5.2 million Q1 in buying their test kits, because DM supplies SCRN with the test kits for the test, and maybe some other things. So I think the way it works is DM gets the test from South Korea, which is where the majority of our tests are coming from, and there's some connections there. Tests are gotten by DM, and they're supplied to SCRN. And the reason that DM is the middleman is because I'm being honest with you right now, is DM is an AI company that does not have revenue. It cannot sustain itself solely based off this AI revenue, because last quarter filing, man, it was like $500,000, which is ridiculous for considering the market cap these guys have, and how much of their revenue is just coming from supplying SCRN with test kits. But the way it works is $6.8 million of the $6.8 million is basically all the revenue SCRN had, maybe a few thousand here and there that they did directly, but that was the sales that they received from DM. So this gave 5.2 million to DM, and 6.8 was what they received for the contract. So I think the way it is structured right now is DM deals with the contract, so they can show the numbers on their books, but SCRN is the one that ends up delivering them, and DM has to pay SCRN for performing the tests and such. But looking at this even here, we paid $5.2 million for the test, but we received $6.8 million in revenue from DM. COVID testing services we need to provide with the contract. So we can kind of see DM is, things are under its umbrella. It gives SCRN business, and SCRN survives off of that. And just obviously one can look at it. SCRN specializes in the life sciences industry, whereas Datametrex AI, which is legitimately an AI companies in the technology and software sectors. And these being public companies, they can't just necessarily have like a software company, performing like healthcare equipment or doing like truck sales or anything like that. It's just not the industry they're in, and that's not what they went public for. To do so would be a fundamental change in their business, and it's not really something you can do that easily. So SCRN is the one that sort of does the life sciences or healthcare sort of industry, and Datametrex is an AI company, and that's what it specializes in. Now, the lack of transparency for future plans. After COVID is done, they obviously need their vertical to grow in. So this is a little section I pulled from the almost a month ago news release that came out, and just in regards to how they're going to be launching their own concierge medical service. So from what I see this being is sort of like a perk that employers offer their employees, where, we'll have nurses come in and, take your blood pressure, do your checkups, and instead of you having to go and wait at a doctor's, or, if anything happens. I mean, we all know how long the wait times are in Canada, so this appeals to sort of the higher end echelon of healthcare and providing things there. But it's great because ScreenPro's already got medical professionals on payroll. It's got nurses as well, so it's just another thing they can use them for, and provide care that way. Now, as I explained, the relationship between DM and ScreenPro, this is a news release from DM, actually, just dating back a little while now. And it's talking about how DM acquired this company called Medi-Call. So it's a telemedicine company, but in reality, it's very similar to what ScreenPro is already describing and being involved with. Now, Medi-Call was an acquisition of where they just issued shares in order to secure the company. And the thing is, it is very similar to the way ScreenPro was planning on acquiring Centered, but just because their share price is too low, the dilution would have been crazy, and it would not have been very good for any of the investors or the people involved with the company. But the thing with DM is their share price is quite a bit higher, so they can afford to do this dilution, and they can afford to acquire these companies. Medi-Call is now owned by DM, and as we know, the relationship between ScreenPro and DM is very closely correlated. Now, I'm not sure how exactly they're going to position itself, but from the last news release, we can sort of tell that Medi-Call is kind of the line of business that ScreenPro wants to be transitioning to, and that ScreenPro news release actually came out after this one. So I think they're definitely going to be going in the telehealth space, which is just a buzzword, but in reality, it's an industry that's going more and more, as with COVID, because physicians, they can provide healthcare remotely, and they don't have to be in person, as most of the things are just describe your symptoms and the doctor sort of talks to you. You can have video conferencing, see if there's any physical things, or that's a great vertical for ScreenPro to be getting involved with. Now, major thing is we're not hearing anything from the management, and as investors, we want to have a clear line of communication, or at least we have questions, we get answers, rather than I'll give you an example. I know a few investors that they send emails to Jamie Hyland over and over and over again. The guy's job is responding, but we don't hear anything back from him. He just stays quiet. And we're not asking him to give up confidential information. What we're asking is, hey Jamie, how are things going? Anything happening at ScreenPro? Are you guys working? Just even his day, man. What they need to do is get an interview done. And this is gonna sound really cliche, but my plan is, if I get this channel to have enough likes, and I know this video is shared around, we get the views in, and we have some subscribers involved with us, I'd like to have these guys on an interview. And what I could appreciate from you guys is if you give these guys a call, or you send emails that, hey, we need to get an interview scheduled, and we need to communicate with the investors. I'm not just going to pump this stock up endlessly, because this is a legitimate concern when you don't have any line of communication with the management. And I'm telling you, if anyone from the management of either ScreenPro or DM is watching, guys, you need to get out and you need to do an interview. I would be more than willing to host anyone on here. We could discuss prior what's sort of up on the table, what we can discuss, what we stay away from, things like that. But we just want to hear from you guys. Mr. Rue has never done an interview. I'm not sure why that is. If he's just self-conscious, or if I'm not sure why exactly, but I would love to, this is an open letter to anyone from management watching, I would love to have you guys on here and do an interview. You guys are a great company. I strongly believe that. That's why I'm still holding this large of a position, and keep buying more and more. Guys, we gotta get someone from management on an interview, because this is a downside, and this is one of the this is the concern I have, is we don't have an open line, but it seems to be that we're improving on this end. And guys, please, let's do the things mentioned above, and I really think if we can get all that done, ScreenPro to the moon, baby. That's how it's going to be. All right, so I hope this kind of helped all the weary investors kind of understand that everything's still on the up and up, and we're still a great company, and hopefully I'll see you guys at 10 cents again. Okay, if there's anything else, I'll make another video to update, and hope everyone has a good day. Okay, thanks, bye-bye.